Okay, it's Wednesday, February 12th, almost what is it? Friendly day, Valentine's Day, take your date out day, coming up on Friday, I believe. So anyways, we have a great show today. We're going to be talking about the grid and power, and lots going on. Before we get started, let's have our own John Sibley Butler give us some tunes.
Messieurs Conon Grand, men whose names are great. Je veux faire un lettre. I am writing your letter. Que vous today, peut-être, that you will read perhaps, si vous avez le temps. Messieurs Conon Grand, je veux vous faire une lettre. Que vous today, peut-être, si vous avez le temps. Je viens de recevoir mes papiers militaires pour aller à la guerre avant mercredi soir.
All right. That was different.
C'est bon. Comment ça va?
Très bien, très bien. Et vous? Et vous?
Et vous?
Actually, it was Louisiana Creole. Let's not connect the two, please, because we do it better than they do. How you doing?
So Johnny, the world is moving at a fast pace. Lots going on, big shifting going on. AI being discussed globally at every level. The race is on. The world is about to enter the final revolution of transformation. It may last 30 years, but it's going to be epic. What say you?
Well, I think that I spent most of my time, as you know, in the last month or so with the grid and controls for the grid. And the whole idea is that you can have as much power if you want to, but if you don't control the grid, then we might be in trouble in the future. We think that we have oversold Texas for companies coming to Texas, and the question is, can we take the Andrea's smart grid and make it good for all of the companies that's coming in? And if you look at all of the research on the grid, there are things sitting on the shelf that we can to control the grid. When I say control the grid, I mean right now we are driving a grid with 1910 controls. So it's like me driving your sports car, or my sports car, excuse me, my sports car with your controls. So I've been working very, very hard on that. I've had lots of discussions about China, tons of discussions about China, not so much in the traditional sense, but as the world moving the center of doing things to the south, quote, to China, quote unquote, and to the BRICS, and that revolved around the technologies that China has. If you look at, and I was a professor in China, remember, for three summers, and all of a sudden they import more cars than the Lexus does, right, or the Toyota does, right? And their imports are going to the south, to Australia, to India, and to other places. And they are in the process of building one of the great airline industries to take the place of Boeing, right? And our great competitor from Europe. So the fundamental question is, one, to what extent will we have a two-peaked empire in the country, where it used to be only the West, and is it really shifting to China? And that has to do with how they have done and all of the technologies, and can they do everything without the West? So
Sure.
I spent a lot of intellectual conversation about that. But when it comes down to what's important to us, Andreas, is how the United States now is being disrupted. We can disrupt companies in the Schumpeter sense, but cities and countries can also be disrupted. So I think we have a president now that's in the process, and I think it's more of a Tea Party move, if you will, than than a Republican Party move. That's my opinion, being a great, in that party of Lincoln myself. But I think this is more Tea Party, and we all know that it started back when President Bush really kind of bailed out Wall Street, and then the Tea Party was formed to say stop spending so much money, let them go bankrupt, and then you had the bailing out of the Silicon Valley Bank, and what we're faced with now is if you're on the high tech side of America and in the stock market, then you're doing fine. But it's 50% of Americans, and we're leaving them hardly no jobs, hardly no retirements, and the economy where they work, at restaurants and et cetera. So I had lots of discussions, and it's more of a reconstruction of a nationalist America where jobs are being provided for the next generation, rather than a takeover of Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and Austin, Texas. So I've had lots of discussion, philosophical discussion about where we are, how can we create jobs. We just cannot leave the gig economy to the next generation of America. And I asked my colleagues, I said, is there some revenge going on with this president? And they would say, no, he's going after the deep state to make sure that this never happens to another president. In the sense that they tried to put President Trump in jail for 10 years, but bam, and he's back, but not as a traditional Republican, in my opinion. They're all gone. The Spencers are gone, and et cetera, but as a representative of the Tea Party. So I think that's where we are politically. I think we're right there, nationalism and popularism, and how do you create within a connected economy now, within a connected economy, how do you create and bring some kind of advanced manufacturing for jobs for the next generation, rather just than the class which is in the stock market where it is booming, and then 50% of Americans have no retirement and no great jobs. And then we have a guy from Austin, Texas, from the continent of my distinguished colleague, Llewellyn, and he has a company called Tesla, and he makes the idea that he's bringing in all of the SB1 folks because American families cannot produce the amount of scientists that he needs. Well, there's another tradition which say, well, actually, he's treating them like indentured servants, where he's paying them half what he would have to pay Americans. So it's a great intellectual discussion about the future of the West and the emergence of the East. And job creation in America. Is America declining as an empire? Is China evolving as an empire? And it all revolved around jobs. So I had to clear myself up with President Trump about what his values were. So I've had lots of discussions with people. I'm doing the Steve Banner show. I apologize to Llewellyn King for that. I'm to talk about some of these issues. So that's kind of where I am now.
Okay.
It's one of the most interesting world I've been in since the assassination of President Kennedy when I was 8th grade.
All right. All right. Llewellyn King, what say you?
Well,
Come closer. Go closer.
we are at a very dangerous point in our history, that the US has withdrawn from the world, and the symbol of that withdrawal, and it's more than a symbol, it's a real thing, is the arbitrary closing of the USAID, which was a powerful force for American ways in the world. I've seen it in operation in Bolivia, in Botswana, in Pakistan, etc. And the idea that it was riddled with graft is ridiculous. If it was, the fraudsters should have been prosecuted. Everybody is accused of fraud and nobody is prosecuted. No evidence is brought forward. We have a rather unstable administration which is doing very bizarre things outside of its constitutional purview, and it is a very dangerous time because we are withdrawing from the world at a time when we should be leading the free world against China and against Russia in terms of our example. both as a society that respects law, but also is prepared to give a helping hand to the world. As we withdraw, China moves in. It is very foolish, very dangerous, and we may not regain the position we had. If you vote in a new government, whether it be a traditional Republican one, and I agree totally with John Sibley Butler that the government we have is not in any sense a Republican government, it is a Tea Party government. And there are other things that are very disturbing. The role of Elon Musk marching around the Oval Office, the White House. That's a rather sacred place. We've never seen it so degraded before. It's a very dangerous time. It's a time when we have an incipient takeover, a failure of democracy, applauded by certain elements, not by the people who voted them in, but by certain elements who are part of mobilizing the vote. It's a very dangerous time for the world and a very embarrassing, sad time for our United States.
Well, that's an interesting point of view.
It's not a point of view, it's a recitation of fact.
Oh my gosh.
This is getting better than Crossfire. I like it. Let's have our guest join us. You know, he's a friend. Bhartendu Sinha is the founder of inGeniti, and inGeniti is a company that potentially is having a moonshot solution for the grid of the future. And we would like to know about it and hear from him and perhaps have a good discussion on it. But, you know, he was joining us at Digital 360 Summit last September. And, you know, we're very interested in following up with his journey. So, Bhartendu, welcome to the event.
Thank you, Andrew.
To the show. Tell us a little bit about you in particular, and you were, you know, early on talking to Llewellyn about your Welsh background, and tell us a little bit about the company and what's going on and what's the journey looking like.
Yeah, sure. Hey, thanks, Andres. Thanks, Llewellyn. Thanks, John. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. So yeah, I have an interesting background. I obviously born in India. I'm an Indian guy, but at the age of 4, I went to Wales, and for the next 3 years, I was Welsh in how I spoke and how I behaved. And then we settled in England until I was about 13. And then my mother felt that, you know, her kids have become British, so she hauled us back to India. And you know, then I stayed in India, right? I mean, I went to IIT. I got a few degrees from IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management, and you know, I decided just to take care of my mother, which is an interesting decision to take. So my mother became dependent on me when I was 18 years old, first year of college, and I just decided not to move out. So I came to the US 30 years late on something called an extraordinary ability visa, and that's a visa nobody has heard about because it's kind of so rare. You know, it's meant to be for somebody who's excelling in any discipline, sports, arts, technology, whatever. And I got that visa for some very interesting projects that I did in India in energy and water, which have the potential to transform, you know, energy, how we use energy, how we are using water, how we are growing crops, and, you know, through energy climate, right? So it touches energy, climate, crops, and water. And you know, in the between, in those 30 years, any company I went to, you have a job, but I always used to target something which is deemed as impossible. I mean, the only goals I would target is what everybody would say was impossible. So for Nextel, I built the conformance test systems equivalent for GSM and CDMA. For TI, I built their non-cellular Bluetooth and Wi-Fi businesses, and you know, they grew ultimately to $1 billion business. For Intel, I built some new businesses when they're getting into software and systems. So I'm a guy who likes to take up challenges that relate to something that does not exist, has a global impact, and take it through, make it successful, right? So what did I do in energy and water, right? So, you know, there's a saying, don't try to solve world hunger, right? People say, don't try to solve world hunger. But you know, I feel that's a limiting saying, right? If you have the capability and the intellect and the drive to solve world hunger, you should solve world hunger, right? So when I looked at energy, first of all, climate change. I think we all agree we need to reduce carbon emissions. Renewables are coming to the grid to reduce carbon emissions, both for generation and for consumption. We have electrification happening on the consumption side. The challenge is how do you balance a grid which is highly renewable centric? So for carbon control, climate control, you need renewables. If renewables destabilize the grid, there is no good way to stabilize the grid. The only way that is going to happen is load control, and that's an area where there were no good solutions. So I said, okay, how can you control any electrical load anywhere in a way that is consumer friendly and utility friendly? So that's the first problem I looked at, and there were no solutions, right? And I'll get into a bit more detail as we go down, but I don't want to start with technology. The second problem I looked at is we are having increasingly existential issues on water, right? Wherever there's intensive agriculture, California, Texas, Eastern Europe, India, China, the water table is receding so fast because we are doing intensive multi crop farming every year, increasingly water intensive crops, and we're getting to a situation where sustainability, agriculture, even international politics is being impacted by the availability of water. So is there a way you can significantly reduce water consumption? 80% of water is consumed for agriculture in a way that is extremely crop friendly, farmer friendly, and also energy friendly because you're using energy to pump this water. So these were the two problems I looked at, and the goal was to make something that works for everybody, works for people who have power, capacity issues, cost issues, color issues, people who have water, who are growing any kind of crop anywhere, right? So whether it's California or it is somewhere in Africa, it doesn't matter, right? And we came up with these solutions. We deployed them in India. They were basic solutions at that point, 2018-19. India is a very politically charged environment. Governments change, and some projects are shut down by the a new succeeding government. So we had a chief minister who was sponsoring us. The next guy shut us down. Around the same time, when we had done these deployments across residential, industrial, agricultural, and commercial, the U.S. government, when the Department of Commerce, Energy, and Trade, they would visit in India, I was, repeatedly encouraged to do these projects and take this business from the U.S. So, long story short, the U.S. government gave me an extraordinary mobility visa to come to the U.S. And take these technologies globally from here, right? And that was the basis for me to come to the US after 30 years, not because I didn't come to the US to make money or because, I want to live in the US. I came to the US because it's from the US that I can have a global impact that touches most people's lives, right? And that's what I come to do. We have tremendous support. We have support from, International Finance Corporation. We have support from Global Smart Grid Federation. We have support from obviously Andre as as the godfather of the smart grid. We have Electric Power Research Institute, which is the pioneer in incubates all new technologies. Most of the new technologies in the US, they have some fingerprint of EPRI on them. They are supporting me on multiple activities. So we're working on solutions that will touch every electrical load in the world, mid to high. We don't care about your coffee maker or your light bulb. Mid to high electrical load, every electrical power consumer, every utility, every farmer who grows crops, every field where crops are grown, every crop, and every government which cares about energy and water, right? So we are coming up with solutions which the concept doesn't exist. And when I shared it with Andre back in November, he said that no, I mean, I don't think anybody can do that, right? And the reality is that we can do that. We are now 8 months into launching our company. Our products are going to be showcased at Distributech, but we have already convinced enough people who are very hard-headed people in terms of knowledge of the industry, right? They're not going to be easily convinced that we have the solution. And the goal is to very rapidly, second half of this year, scale it globally and use it for number of applications. And I'll get into the technology if you want to, Andres, but I wanted to share more from a user perspective and from a vision perspective what we're trying to do. We do aim to be, through optimization of energy and optimization of water, the moonshot, which we believe in, is that we will have the largest impact of energy, water, and climate and agriculture of any company in the world, right? I mean, that is something we sincerely believe. And the technologies we have are unique, and they are extremely generic and versatile, and they apply to any electrical power consumption, any crop farming anywhere in the world.
Hmm.
With that, I'll pause.
Lee?
Yes. You know, I'm so glad to have you on the show. And I'm going to ask you a basic question. You know,
Absolutely.
everybody understands water.
Mhm, mhm. Yes,
Everybody understands the need for water.
yes,
We understand the need for clean water.
yes.
From the people that Llewellyn King has interviewed and all the shows that we have had, and then the shows that we have had, nobody understands that we can run out of electricity.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
I'm going to say that again.
mhm,
If I were to say that that the United States, let's just take state of Texas, that's where everybody is moving to, that perhaps there will not be enough electricity when you plug up in the data centers.
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
everybody would say, well, your lights came on this morning.
mhm, mhm,
So why is it that we have a great understanding of the prediction and the probability of the lack of water,
mhm,
whereas when it comes to the man-made
mhm,
electricity, it's not a problem.
mhm,
It's not a problem in presidential campaigns. It's
mhm,
not a problem in governmental campaigns.
mhm,
But on the other hand, when we do the projections, when Andreas Cavalli does the projection and tell me how much electricity that we need right now, or even 10 years from now,
mhm,
there is nobody in the public square that's
mhm.
discussing that.
So
So
let
that's
me
the first question. Then I have another
go
question.
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah. I can wait for your second question and
And
answer.
the second question is, there is a theory that Llewellyn and I have been working with a guy, we've been working together with a guy named Richard Scrindle, and there's a theory that everything we need to do to create no electricity problems on the grid is sitting on the shelf, because America has spent billions of dollars looking at these issues. But as I said in my introduction, we're running on 1910 control systems.
Mhm,
Why can't we take this off the shelf and get it done? And I know that it is regulated. I know that they're making billions of dollars on 1910 technology. But the question is, will we ever in the history of the grid be able not to just to concentrate on generation,
mhm, mhm.
wherever it comes from, but also to concentrate on controls which would increase the entire efficiency
Yes.
of the operation of the grid?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's great questions, and they're very, profound and fundamental, which is always makes it forces you to think intensely before you answer, right? So I think at a human level, we understand thirst, right? We don't understand electricity. Electricity has only been with us 120, 130 years. So we do understand heat and cold, though, right? So, for example, if you're adding increasing renewable, so water, I think, no question. You said we understand it. We understand it, and water shortages, we all can feel what it's going to be like, right, as they emerge. Now, come to electricity. So we're not going to run short of electricity. What we're going to run short of is we're going to have a grid that cannot operate, right? Today, modern civilization is almost completely based on electricity. There's nothing you can do which is not dependent on electricity. Either it's even if you're driving your car, the traffic lights run on electricity, right? So as we're adding renewables, I think, John, you being in Texas, you would have gone through the winter of the winter when hell froze over in Texas, right?
Yes,
A few
I'm
years back,
still
right?
cold. Don't say it. I get cold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we have that situation increasingly emerging where the grid is becoming unstable. As we are driving climate change goals, we are going towards renewables. The grid is becoming unstable because renewables inherently are unstable. And when you cannot generate enough power because your source of electricity is unstable, suddenly your grid fails, and then you start boiling or freezing, or your grid failure is a catastrophic situation in any environment today, right? So we only understand electricity when we don't have it, right? And to avoid not having electricity, you have to balance the increasing renewables, which is inevitable for climate change control, with an ability, as you said, to have controls which balance the grid, right? And so if the grid is not balanced, the grid fails, then we feel it, right? But otherwise, we don't think about it. And I think why it's not a election issue is really because grid failures have started increasing. They're not rampant, right? They're not rampant. You're not having grid failures every day, right? In some places where electricity is short, like Africa, India, and so on, it is an election issue, by the way, because you don't have it. In the US, as we increase renewables, as we have increased electrification, give you another example, not just data centers, if every gasoline car in the US were to become electric, you would need to double the capacity of the US electric grid, which has taken 120 years to build so far, right? It'll cost tens of trillions of dollars to upgrade that, right? So how are you going to balance as you add renewables for generation and as you add electric loads for consumption? How are you going to balance that grid? Because if you can't balance it, then people are going to feel it that suddenly we don't have electricity because the grid is out of whack. And then as that becomes more prevalent, it will become an issue which is not just an election issue, but is a existential issue if we don't have electric power. So
But let me ask you this: do we have a control system to balance it?
yes, so that's where I'm coming to, right? And that's the approach that I looked at, right? So today you cannot control generation very effectively, right? The nature of generation is if it's if you have gas power plants, you can control generation, but they are very expensive. Coal and thermal are very difficult to control. Storage is very, very expensive. The only one way that you can really control the balance of the grid effectively is by controlling loads, right?
Yeah.
And the controlling of loads, nothing has been successful so far in a significant way, right? I mean, people have done okay. We will, they call it demand response. We'll send you a message, you shut down this, or you have a building management system or energy management system, or you have a smart HVAC, or people have smart plugs for some of the applications, or people just upgrade to smart devices, right? But it's completely fragmented. If you look at the approach towards balancing loads, which is the only realistic way to balance the grid. Storage is too expensive and generation is not amenable to balance. Load management has not been addressed in a way that is generic and universal. And the ability to do that, the concept that can be done is something I proposed to Andres in October. That do you think there's a way to balance, to manage and optimize any electrical load anywhere, right, through one solution? He said, I don't think so, but that's what we have. We have one solution that can monitor, control, and optimize any electrical load anywhere so that neither is John unhappy because his temperature is going up significantly, nor is Austin Energy unhappy because they're having to pay exorbitant prices for peak load, or they're having to cut power supply to their consumers. So that is the approach. As you said, control systems, right? Control systems is the key. And there is no good control system to manage loads today. And that's what we're bringing in. One solution, we call it, like Lord of the Rings, right? We say, one ring to bind them, one ring to rule them all, one ring to bind them, one ring to whatever it is, right? We have one solution. Any load, we can monitor, control, and optimize in a consumer-friendly and a utility-friendly way at a relatively low cost. We don't look for building management systems and so on. We don't ask you to upgrade your equipment. In fact, we don't even cut a wire. We don't even open your hardware. We don't even need API access to your device. We have done it so that you can increase electrification of your home without even calling an electrician, right? Without calling a civil guy, right? So civil
Right.
engineer.
So I look at it like this as I looked at it on this show. We are where computers were 60 years ago.
Right.
So that Microsoft now can balance all the quote loads with all of its computers. So why is it that, I mean, when you say there's no controls available, all of the billions upon billions of dollars
Yes.
that America has spent on the grid,
Yeah.
it still sits on the shelf. And so my next question is this: if you are making $10 billion a year off of a 1910 technology, would you change?
Well, yes. I mean, it's sometimes just how you look at it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like an invisible elephant in the room. You just got to paint it and then it's there, right? The approach people have taken to controlling loads has been, oh, let's make this load smart. Let's put in an expensive building management system. Let's let's to tell people to switch off their loads. So let's put a device in that forces people to to shut down their HVAC system in summer. The approach people have taken is wrong, right? It's
Yes,
fundamentally wrong, right? And when you take a fundamentally wrong approach, it does not scale because it sounds cool. And when we deployed it across 400 customers, everybody loved it, right? Because it works
yeah,
so well for them, for consumers. So we changed the approach. We said instead of trying to make go to smart devices, put in expensive systems, very low cost. And when you say, 19, well, I wouldn't say 19, most of it is 1990s technology, some of it is maybe 2010 technologies. We're putting together technologies that exist in a way that has not been done before to control loads in a way that is completely agnostic. We don't care voltage, current, frequency, phase, grounded, not grounded, where it's located, whether you have a data network or not, we don't care, right?
yeah,
Uh,
right. So
so
let's call it AI load, and then you don't get rid of the human. It's like, I mean, if I can fly an airplane from here to Dallas with no people, right, and the plane will land by itself, right? We can do that now, right?
mm,
And why can't we put AI completely through the system? You
mm,
don't get rid of we still have people pulling
yeah,
levers now, right?
yes,
For the
yes.
load. How can we and then I'm gonna shut up. How can you get AI to interact with the human component to create a system that is AI like, that
Yeah,
will
yeah.
control, and we don't have to sit there and pull stuff like this. Rather, I can get on a big airplane and fly to New York, and all of the pilots, which are now passengers, just sleep. That's my
Right.
question.
Right. Yeah. So the challenge with any kind of data solution with AI is ultimately the rubber hits the road where you touch the real world. So if you want to optimize energy grids and energy grid control through AI, there must be something that is monitoring and controlling those loads
Right.
in a way that avoids the pitfalls of the approaches that have been taken in the past, right? And that's what we've said, that our approach is that we can monitor, control, and optimize any load, minute, second, whatever level you want to. And once you can do that, then you can apply AI solutions in terms of how to do that better. But that last mile between the intelligence and the instrument, right, or the appliance, right? How do you connect the appliance to the intelligence in a way that is effective for both the consumer and the utility? That's a problem that was not solved effectively, and we believe we have solved
Right.
that, right? And then you can apply
Okay.
AI, right?
Thank you. I give it to my distinguished colleague, Llewellyn King, who just dressed magnificent today because I was on him last year for dressing so trashy last time. I could not sleep. He was dressed so trashy. Now he's back to his eloquent self.
See,
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron.
modern day, so many subjects came. What I would like to understand, which I failed to do, I've had a look at your website and I've listened here. Exactly what is your technology and how does it work?
Right, sure. So we've intentionally kept it a little high level at the website. We want to make sure we get a kind of a clean run for some time in terms of getting global traction. But I'll explain how we do it, right? So our technology is basically, let's say it's a smart meter plus 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 shrunk down into a form factor of a plug, right? And if it's a multi-phase load, it's no longer plug form factor. It's like cable intercept, right? But what we do is uh, through this device. So smart meters have been there. They monitor your home every 15 minutes. Next day you get the data. What we do is we monitor a single phase device. Uh, we monitor it every second. We can decide what frequency we send you the data. We also provide 9 different. So we've put in a lot of intelligence, right? So I had a smart meter company. My smart meter company in trials in India and Colombia, we were rated as the best performing smart meter in the world, right? So we know this stuff, right? Uh, what we do is we provide 9 kinds of protection on your load. We constantly monitor the location of your load, of your appliance. We measure all kinds of electrical parameters, not just energy power, but a bunch of things that you can use for more sophisticated analysis. Now, the data networks that we use, and we have slightly different variants of 4 kilowatts, 15 kilowatts, and then unlimited, where we basically the load controllers are sitting outside of our device, right? So now this one device, it does not, let's say you have most homes in the US, you have loads that are below 4 kilowatts. So it's plug to plug. It's like a smart plug. You plug it in and plug it into the wall. You have higher loads like HVACs and level 2 chargers, where it is still plugs, but they are high-end plugs. So we have again plug to plug. You plug in yours and you plug into the wall. So no touching of the hardware, no opening of the APIs. And if you have three-phase loads or higher power loads, then we have a cable intercept device where you do need an electrician to connect it up, right? Now, what happens is
Excuse me, let me understand it. Your device, your plug in the wall, will cut off high load uses during peak times. Is that what it does?
so it's much more subtle than that. So you can identify that your appliance is critical. We will never touch power to that, right? We will never touch power to that. Again, these are like elephants in the room where people have not really taken the approach. What we said is 60% of the peak load is heating, cooling, or pumping loads. So your water, air heating, air cooling, chilling, whatever it is, right? Or pumping, fans, blowers. Those devices typically are used to control the temperature of something. That's the nature of heating, cooling, or pumping loads. If you can now cycle power to those loads in an intelligent way, so this does not mean that we're going to shut down your AC in the summer. What it means is that you can say, okay, 10% of the time I can cycle my load. Now, what that means is that your AC might run for 55 minutes or 50 minutes every hour, and 5 or 10 minutes it's switching off, right? Or your heater or your water heater, we may be shifting the time so that it operates when power is cheaper, either cycling or shifting of the time of usage. But we don't require that device to be smart. We don't require your HVAC system or your water heater or your chiller to be smart, right? You run with your legacy equipment. So there's about 10 billion mid to high end loads in the world. We don't require them to be upgraded. Our device will sit and it will make that device smart. Now, as a user, if you are cycling your load, what is your advantage? Your advantage is that you're saving that much power without discomfort. So let's say, Llewellyn, you're sitting at home in Texas, it's 40 Celsius outside, 100 Fahrenheit. Your HVAC goes off for 10 minutes in the hour. You will not even notice it because your temperature might go up by 1 or 2 degrees centigrade or 2 or 3 degrees.
Doesn't an efficient modern thermostat do just that? In my home here, it shuts off, the temperature falls, and it comes up, vice versa in summer. Isn't that the same activity?
Yes. So now for thermostats in the US, right, and that is not a target market for us, thermostats in US homes, because that is well addressed. But most cooling in the world is not done by thermostat controlled environments. Most cooling in the world is done by legacy ACs, right? So those ones where you do not have that kind of a thermostat based control mechanism for your cooling. In fact, I get this question very often from US people because, and I'm a US person now, right? But because thermostats in the home means that you can actually now set your thermostat and you're controlling the temperature. But the bulk of the world is not thermostat-based heating and cooling, right? The bulk of the world where energy is being used, it is heaters, it is air conditioners, it is water heaters, and so on, right? So now, if you're talking about HVACs also, in phase 2, we will also interface with HVACs, but we're not targeting that right now because for the US market, HVACs is kind of a solved solution. In the Digital 360 Summit, which we had, I did talk to a company. Andres had invited them over, which is controlling thermostats, and I asked them what percentage of thermostats can you control. They said maybe around 40% of thermostats. So even for thermostats, the challenge is that they have their own custom APIs. So you as a user, you are able to control them, but for the utility, how does the utility tweak your thermostat to balance the grid in a way that is not causing discomfort for you? That is a problem that's still not solved. So your question is absolutely valid. You have a thermostat, yes, you are getting your home energy temperature optimized, but for the utility, the ability to balance the grid through your thermostat is extremely limited. Let's look at it.
I don't see how the grid will balance any better. We have many companies now working on reducing and leveling out home consumption as part of the general move to distributed energy resources, and conservation is a very large part of that undertaking. And you have many people after that market. Google has $100 million in one company looking at the home. The large companies are very much into controlling their consumption because it's expensive. So the large retailers like Walmart are extraordinarily aware of who is your customer going forward. If the thermostats in American homes do the job, if the large industrial customers are already controlling load, to whom are you going to sell your services?
So let's talk about the US market, not the global market. So in the US, one of the key problems that is unsolved right now is electrification. People are adding EVs to their homes, right? And I think that you'll resonate with, right? So the grid, as I said, if all the gasoline cars were replaced with EVs, you need to double the capacity of your grid, which is tens of trillions of dollars of investment, right? And decades of time. So as you add an EV, how do you make sure that you don't need to increase the capacity of your service, right, of your electric service point? One of the ways that's being approached is through a technology called smart panels, right? Now, smart panels are actually reasonably expensive. I've spoken in detail to Span, to Siemens, to Schneider about their solutions. They're in the range of $4,000 to $5,000, and they cost a similar amount of money to install, right? What we can do is we can have our devices multiplex the load. So what that means is that if you say that these are my 3 or 4 priority loads, right, through a much lower cost solution, private Wi-Fi network, backend cellular, right, cellular, which is integrated with 600 operators around the world, we can multiplex your load. So now we're not saying increase the service point because capacity is very expensive, time consuming. We're not saying install a smart panel. We're saying install 2 or 3 devices, one to monitor the home load, one to control the loads which you want to prioritize, right? And so when one load switches on, the monitoring device will know in milliseconds, and it will shut down the load device. So it enables electrification. So in fact, that is where EPRI, Electric Power Research Institute, is saying that is the immediate target for the US market, electrification, because there's no good solution for electrification right now. How do you electrify homes with EVs or with e-stoves or e-cookers, right? As with the existing grid infrastructure. So if you go to other countries, like if you go to Africa, you go to India and so on, there HVAC is not a concern because nobody has HVACs, right? There the control of the ACs and the heaters is actually extremely critical. And we saw that people who are saving 20-30% of their energy bills through cycling of loads without discomfort, right? And that same applies to the grid. So different markets have different needs. In the US, HVAC is not our market right now. In phase 2, we will integrate with HVACs in a way that hopefully gives you more, user will retain control, but the grid will have some ability to optimize HVAC-based systems, and it's not going to be limited to 30-40% of HVACs, which is the case right now.
What do you do for water?
Water. So water, completely different solution. So when we proposed this solution to a chief minister equivalent of a governor of a state in India, he said, what can you do for water? Exactly the same words as you. And we looked at water, and the challenge with water is that the existing solutions so when people pump water, they just keep on pumping water, right? They pump way more water than is needed, sometimes 3 to 4 times more water than is needed. Either they pay for the electricity or the government subsidizes them. The water table extraction is excessive, and the crop health may also be affected. 90% of a farmer's work, it could be farmer or agricultural labor's work, is to go every day and check that the watering is done adequately in the fields, right? So if you have a 100-day crop, 90 days is watering and everything else is the remaining 10 days. So we looked at the situation and we said that, okay, what are the solutions right now? So one of the solutions is drip irrigation, which is extremely expensive technology. You have to lay the pipes. The other solution is soil moisture sensors people have, right? But they only work for dry crops, which by the way, don't consume too much of the water anyway, right? So we came up with a solution, which is the only sensor in the world that exists, which is a dual sensor for soil moisture and water level. We place one sensor in every field where water reaches last. And we have identified there are only 5 kinds of crops from a watering perspective. There is rice, sugarcane, dry crops like wheat, corn, and so on, short-term crops like vegetables, and perennial crops like vineyards and plantations. So we identify what is the watering pattern that is required. The farmer can override that, right? And as soon as we assume the pump is going to be started every day to water the fields. But as soon as our sensors say that for this crop, for all the fields that are serviced by that pump, the water level is adequate in the most remote location where water reaches, the signal goes back via LoRaWAN, and we shut down the pump. So what we saw is that about 75% of the water consumption was reduced without affecting crop health. Farmers, 90% of their visits to the field was reduced. So it is socioeconomic transformation in rural areas, especially in hot climates, where it's very difficult to go. Electricity consumption was also reduced by around 75% for pumping of the water. You even get information like, if there's flooding or if there's leaks in the pipe because of which water is not going, we can analyze the data and detect that, okay, there's too much water coming or there's not enough water coming. So that means either there's a breach or there's a leak in the pipe somewhere, right? So the whole process of agriculture, if you see, it's a 10,000-year-old industry, right? It's the oldest industry, we have. Maybe hunting is older, I don't know. But when you're trying to deal with agriculture, the automation is not happening because watering is the main part, and watering, there's been no good solution. Now, big companies like Monsanto and all, they have put in massively expensive solutions for watering of crops. But the average farmer, mid to small, or even large farmer who's not corporatized, they have really no good solution for managing their watering. The other challenge they have is their pumps are often in areas where there's no cellular connectivity. So how are you even going to control those pumps, right? So we use a technology. We have an option for a technology called power line communication, RF, which either uses a power line or RF mesh network that works where even you don't have cellular signal. So we can do remote precision watering of any crop anywhere, even where there is absolutely no data network at all. So we have solved the watering problem of agriculture, and we have done it with 100 farmers in India, right? And we are planning to do the pilots in the US also, in a way that has really made the farmer now sit at home. He's saying, okay, this field has this much water, this field has this much water. No, I want to override the pump. I want to switch on the pump again. They can do that, and they're getting a precise automation of watering of their crops, along with electricity saving, water saving, labor saving, and painful life in terms of daily visits to the field is addressed, right? So crop health is protected, precision watering, flooding, dryness, we protect against all of these. So it's the first time that there is a low cost automated solution of precision watering of crops in agriculture. I would say that since the dawn of civilization, right? Because we studied this extensively, and there was no solutions that really work effectively, especially if you're switching crops between wet crops and dry crops.
Hmm.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
Okay.
Can you give us an idea on the cost of your solution?
Yes. So the cost depends on what is the power of the equipment you're controlling, right? And what is the wireless connectivity that you're looking for, right? So if you're looking for PLC RF, it is expensive because the technology is expensive. If you're looking for private Wi-Fi network, it is cheap. So at the lowest end, when you're talking of a device which can control any kind of typical home load in the US, Europe, around the world, 4 kilowatts or less, and it's operating off private Wi-Fi, you're talking of $50 kind of a cost, because we have to compete with smart plugs. I mean, the reality is we offer many more features, but for the consumer, those features will not translate. You can get a smart plug for $30 or $35. We can't be charging much more than that, right? So that's at the low end. As you add cellular, so cellular, we can operate with any cellular network, any technology anywhere because of the eSIM that we use. That is a little expensive. So if you want cellular, don't depend on Wi-Fi, that goes to $100. If you want to control 15 kilowatt loads instead of 4 kilowatt, there you're competing with EV charging controllers, which are in the range of $300 to $400. So there we're offering for $250. And if you're trying to control remote pumps in agricultural fields where there's no data connectivity at all, those in the US, and we've spoken to multiple vendors, they're selling for around $3,000 each, the controller. We're planning to market that for about $1,000, because for us, we still get our significant gross margins on that. So we are slightly more expensive than the low-end smart plugs, but we are significantly cheaper than anything else for cellular control or for mid-range power control or for remote control. We are significantly cheaper.
Hmm.
Johnny?
Yes, I think it's very, very interesting because of the issues that's coming up in electricity. I think the water has been issues for years and years upon years. And when new and Andreas, can you pull up these statistics that we need in the future to keep America going on the assumption that we be electrified? Because you know
It's roughly 20 times, 20 times.
that's all right. It's 20 times. So what's very interesting to me is that how we're just going toward the waterfall, if you will,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the probability that electricity would be a problem. So when you multiplex something, of course, you're taking it from the same source and you're switching rapidly, right? It's not done by it's a rapidly switch. So this is my question with all of the Internet of Things, right? That's going on in the world, right? And the fact that, by the way, we have to power all of our generators, all of our electric cars. We got to power the generators, and they get there from traditional kinds of fossil fuels. Am I
Right.
right? I think I'm
Right,
right.
right, right.
So how did you see not only the control of what you do, the controls that you're working on, but how does that interact with the Internet of Things that I carry around, in addition to the stuff that's in my permanent house?
Mm, mm,
Because remember, they have to be charged also. People don't realize that when I move with my cell phone, I have to charge it at home. I have
mm,
to charge it in my automobile. I have to charge it at school, right? So it's not
Mhm.
like it gets its charge from, from
mm,
the air. So I
mm,
would think that like computers, see, this is what I'm thinking about. So if I were to take my cell phone and do something real, real bad, I can mess up my Microsoft or whatever I'm working on, right? I can bring a virus into the whole organization, right? I can do that, right?
mm.
Do you face that same kind of problem with walk around Internet of Internet of Things? Can you face that same problem with control systems?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, John. The problem with load control and Internet of Things is that every device is different. Typically, they are dumb. If you make them smart, they are proprietary APIs, so you don't get
Yeah.
the data, right? So what we're saying is we don't care if your device is dumb. We don't care if your device is smart. We will make the data and control of that device available through one standard low-cost solution, which is obviously fully controllable by the user, but limited kind of control in a way that users can very easily override by the utility, right? So now we're like a wrapper around electrical devices. So today the cell phone we have it's like an interface for many different services to us. One device, right? We have the same view that our device we've deployed it with 400 customers. They all loved it, right? Because of the benefits, the savings, and benefits they get in terms of seeing their per device how much energy I'm spending when then you can optimize, right? You can even see approximate cost and carbon saving for, consumption of your device. So now we put a wrapper around electrical devices, which makes it extremely beneficial for consumers, valuable for utilities to balance the grid, but also that data now becomes available, right? So once you have the data and the control available, then you are basically making electrical devices semi-accessible. We don't want anybody to control anyone's devices, so more full control for the owner, limited control for the utility, and no control for anybody else, right? But we are putting a abstraction layer around those 10 billion mid to high end electrical loads that today does not exist. So it's basically putting the entire electrical load system onto a Internet of Things network in a way that as a consumer you love it, right? So you are saving money and saving energy, and as a utility you are suddenly empowered in ways that you were not empowered before to balance the grid, right? Through control
Mhm.
systems. So, but yes, the challenge is it does not exist because everybody has proprietary devices are smart. They have no interfaces, or the interfaces that exist, they're all proprietary.
Right. And everybody wants to be, you know, don't worry about anything. But I
Yep.
could, with my handheld, I could just really disrupt the entire bank with my handheld.
Oh,
So it's
you,
an interesting problem, and it's a problem that we've had before vis-a-vis other kinds of technology. But let me tell you, when it comes to electricity,
Mhm.
because the entire country runs on electricity, will depend on electricity in the future, and
Mhm.
it is growing exponentially.
Yes, 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 absolutely. So,
Yeah.
so we we are not trying this first time, right? We've done this, we've deployed this, we've seen tremendous success with this. We had to shut down our activities for political reasons, change of government in India, and tremendous kind of support we're getting because we know that as a consumer, John, Llewellyn, not for your HVAC but for your other systems, right? You're going to love this solution because now one app, yeah, all of your mid to high end power devices, you can monitor and control the energy, the power, the approximate cost, approximate carbon emission for any period. You can see, you can control, you can schedule, you can automate, you can optimize. So suddenly you have abstracted out electrical devices or hardware devices which are like sitting somewhere. They're all now view and control through one single app, and gives you tremendous power. We haven't spoken about many of the applications. Even for devices which you don't want to cycle, you can get precision data in terms of efficiency, electrical behavior, predictive maintenance, disaggregation. There's many different applications that we can do that are way, way better than is possible today, just because of the point you're bringing, John, that you can't, there are no control systems for electrical loads. There are no generic control systems for electrical loads.
Okay.
And if they were, how do you make it in a way that consumers will accept it? So we made it in a way that consumers love it, that it is generic. We don't care whether where you bought your cooler or chiller or water heater from or your EV charger from. We will monitor, control, and optimize that load no matter where you bought it from. And it's all now sitting on your app in your phone. And it's all now semi-controllable with simple user override for the utility from their portal.
So you have the ability to select if it's a hot water heater, select if it's a whatever.
Through your app, when you put in the plug, it's simple. You just scan and you say, okay, this is my water
Okay,
heater.
you scan it. Okay, I got it.
So you just scan and say, okay, this is the device for my water heater. So you're now seeing your portfolio of electrical loads in your home, or if you're an aggregator, you might be seeing across your industrial units or across your whatever it is, right? You can see all your devices through one app where you can do precision down. We can get down to a second, but default is 5 minutes. Per 5 minutes, real time energy, power, and monitoring and control and scheduling and optimization of those loads.
Llewellyn, final question.
Yes.
Deployed in the US and the systems yet.
Come
Have you
closer.
deployed any in the US yet?
No.
So what is the question? Can you just repeat?
I want to know whether you have any up and working in the US.
We will have from April. So we have redeveloped the solution over the last.
Said that consumers love it, but if you haven't deployed them, how do you know consumers love them?
So we have deployed these in India across residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural consumers for 100 of each, right? And they loved it, right? I mean, we have both videos and in fact, when when the government shut it down, they came back to us after a year saying that we're getting too many people asking us for the solution again, right? So we know that consumers love it. Anecdotal story, because you probably have seen rural areas. Our team was held kind of waylaid on the streets in rural areas where they did it, because the farmers who are going to the fields every day, they're saying that, hey, the next farm, they're all having it easy. Life has become easy for them. You deploy it for us also. But even industrial units, they were saying, I'm saving like hundreds of dollars a month on my electric fan because I'm cycling my loads now, right? Shopkeepers were loving it. Running their AC for 12 hours a day, 6 tons of load for a mid-sized shop.
So Llewellyn, basically the solution is for third world countries that don't have automation.
Right.
And it's priced accordingly.
I would not say that, because EPRI is looking at the solutions for the US economy, right? We're not looking at HVACs.
But you told me the US is not a target. You started with
HVACs only. For HVACs only. Because HVACs are already there to automate temperature.
Well, that's 80% of the load, right? HVACs.
Well, there's water heaters. There is industrial, agricultural.
Again, in residential, HVAC is the bulk of it. But we're running out of time. So, guys, final thoughts. Llewellyn, final thoughts.
It works, especially with water. Electricity, we can make more if we need it. We can manage it. We can do without in some ways. You can have load shedding, but you can't do without water. You can't have farms. You can't load shed for very long, not water crops. And Texas, for example, is beginning to face huge water problems. I interviewed the article is in Forbes this week, in the Forbes.com, a utility executive, and he said no utility decision taken in Texas now does not include some understanding that water is part of the equation. The largest impediment in Texas, he told me, to new data centers is not electricity, it's water. So the water side of your business may be much more in demand than the electric side, because on the electric side, there's been an enormous amount of attention to load shedding, load management, and some very sophisticated programs are at work in after the meter and before the meter. But water is just coming into focus in the US. So my off the shelf, without any deep understanding, would say water is really the future. And anything you can do to save it is going to be very, very, very valuable to societies. And thank you so much.
Yes, I agree. I agree exactly. I did tell what my distinguished colleague said.
No, sure. So anyway, I am working with EPRI on multiple energy solutions that don't exist today because we have a much better solution. So I hope to demonstrate that for energy, the primary solution is for energy, and water is equally important, I would say.
Sure.
But
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you for being with us. We're running out of time. We got to run. We'll have you back. We'll keep track of your progress. Johnny, take us away.
Turn out the lights. Party's over. They say that all good things must end. Let's call it a night. Party's over. And tomorrow we all drink some water once again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you. Nice. Thanks, Andres. Thanks, Llewellyn. Thanks, John.
Absolutely. We'll have you back. We'll have you back.
Have a good day. Thank you.
You too.